Okay, hello everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Pat Fliggy, Director of Temple's Alumni Career Services. We have a packed agenda, so I'm going to offer just some brief opening remarks. If you did not already know this, Temple offers a plethora of alumni career services to our graduates. They can help you at any stage of your career growth or your job search. You've got a link to these services in the Know Before You Go email when you arrived. And you'll get more information about those in the post-program email as well. So today you're going to hear from Temple's Office of Non-Credit and Continuing Education about their offerings, and specifically from Ziplines Educations, their partner in delivering AI content. You'll also learn about additional courses and discounts you enjoy as a Temple alum. Since there's a lot of us, we'll keep everyone muted, and you can ask questions using the chat feature or by raising your hand. And we're also recording today's session. And now I will hand things off to my colleague, Kim.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kim Solano. I'm the Director of Non-Credit and Continuing Education here at Temple. I'm also a three-time Temple alum, so one of those lifers, as we like to say. So if anyone's CLA, Fox, or College of Ed alums, hey, friends, nice to see you all. Today, we're going to introduce you to our partner, Ziplines, who provides a number of amazing programs that Clayton will talk about. Some other things that we also offer with NCCE is our Real Estate Institute. So for folks looking to either pursue a career as a realtor or an appraiser or even a broker, we offer pre-licensure coursework as well as continuing ed programming. And we also have an older adult lifelong learning association for folks over 50 that just like to keep on learning. We offer everything from Mahjong to city planning to hot topics in justice and law and everything in between. So it's nice to see you all. Thanks for joining us, and I will hand it over to Clayton.
Hi, everyone. I'm Clayton Dean. I'm Vice President of Partnerships at Ziplines. I work very closely with Kim and Katie, and we deploy a series of really high impact, very practical 5 and 10 week upskilling programs, digital marketing, project management, business analytics, and we're also in focusing heavily on AI as we look ahead. AI prompting, AI automation, and also looking at AI for HR professionals and other areas where we can get more specific in delivering really high impact skills in specific roles and career paths. Excited today to talk a little bit more about AI. We have one of our subject matter experts, Danush Kapadia. He's a AI strategist and educator. He's one of the best in the business. He's helped us build a lot of our AI programming. And is one of our highest rated instructors as well. He's great at what he does and has a lot of great information to share today. So super excited to have him here. Again, we're trying to make this very high impact. What can you use today and walk away with? This is not going to be a boring webinar by any means. So want to make it as valuable and use your time as valuable as we can today. So yeah, so thanks for joining us. And I'd love to introduce Danush. I'll let you take over.
Thanks, Clayton. Hi, everyone. Good morning. I'm Danush. I'm based in San Francisco, California, and I work with Ziplines. I'm an instructor for our AI prompting course as well as our AI workflows course. I also helped to design these courses, and they're super popular. We tend to get quite a few students in each of them. And I'm excited to be here today and give you a useful set of things to think about as you start using AI. And happy to answer any questions.
Oh, do you want us to share, Danush? I thought you had it on your end.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'll get my slides fired up.
Okay, cool.
All right. So as we get in here, sorry, give me 1 second. I'm just setting up my screens. So I wanted to start by naming something that we all feel, whether we, say it out loud or not. But there's this sense of fear when it comes to AI. It's this radical new technology. It's moving really fast. Most people have a sense of overwhelm around where to start, or if you've started, kind of how to keep up with the rapidly evolving, change. and the growth anxiety of a world that's moving so fast, and a technology that's kind of changing month over month faster than we can type. And so today is really all about kind of clearing up this fog and giving you a few kind of key things, the signal and the noise, if you will. And we've designed this to be very practical and very actionable, so that you have a few things that you can try right away. It would be great if folks can turn their cameras on. It makes the whole thing a little bit more fun, a little bit more interactive, and feel free to kind of slow me down and ask questions as we go. So, if you're feeling overwhelmed by AI, you're not alone. I feel it too, and I live and breathe this stuff all day long. So, what I invite you to do here is start to step into a mindset of curiosity and experimentation rather than kind of trying to figure it out or master it, right? And have a mindset of being a little playful with it, if you will. So I'll talk a little bit about how chat has helped me in my own life, just as a way to kind of help people understand like the range of possibilities here. And I'll start with kind of honing in on where this all became very real for me. So right after GPT-4 came out, I kind of got hit with a personal emergency where a family member of mine was in you know, had a medical emergency, and I had to like drop everything I was doing, get on a plane, fly out. It was in a different country, a different healthcare system, fairly critical situation. And I was getting all of this medical terminology that was being thrown at me at a time when I was, like emotionally pretty overwhelmed. And in that moment, I turned to chat and I would ask it things like, hey, I don't understand this terminology. Like, I just got off a phone call with a doctor. Yeah, all the things they said. Can you explain this to me like I'm 10? And it really kind of helped me quickly wrap my head around what the condition was, what the options were, what the trade-offs were. And then, I would kind of talk to chat and say, hey, as I'm thinking about making this decision, like what are the second order consequences of that I might not be considering, that I might not be thinking about right now. And that kind of helped me make more clear-eyed decisions in a very stressful moment where the stakes were pretty high. Um, Before kind of meeting with a doctor, as I was prepping, I would have it help me prep, have me think through the questions I should be asking. And all of that like really helped kind of open up some of the blind spots and just take some of that load off, in a time that felt pretty heavy. So that's when it really clicked for me that this was an entirely different animal. This was a completely different kind of technology than anything that I had dealt with up until that point. And it was much more of a thinking partner, than just kind of a tool that you use in the traditional sense. And since then, I've used it in various aspects of my life. I use it in my consulting practice all day, every day. I use it to create content. I use it to negotiate better deals for myself. I have it review contracts like a junior lawyer. This is something I would never do. And I work with a lot of bigger companies. And I was like, oh, I'm the small fish. If something happens, like, I don't really have any leverage here. But chat kind of reads through contracts, helps me negotiate kind of better deals, helps me protect myself. And yeah, I mean, I would say like the results have been like transformative over the span of, about 2.5, 3 years of using this technology. It's materially changed my life. It improved my nutrition, my eating habits, my decision making, my business outcomes, across a variety of different use cases. I'll pause here to just take any if people have questions or want to discuss anything, I'm happy to dive in here before moving on.
If you do have a question, you can chat it in or you can use the raise hand feature and we'll find you.
Yeah, use the raise hand feature and unmute. Let's have a chat. Linda. Oh, sorry, you're on mute, Linda.
Okay. I think that's great, how you were sharing regarding the medical questions, because I'm in a very similar situation. And so I completely understand that. And I didn't think to do that with chat. But you also mentioned how you utilize chat for, you said, to make you do things more efficiently. Can you just expand on that a little bit? And you said healthy to help you to be health, because when you're in a situation where you caring for a loved one, you often sometimes don't think about yourself.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Maybe the easiest way for me to answer this is to just show you.
okay.
So let's see. I created like my own, sorry, yeah, my screen's being shared. Um, I created my own nutritionist here, and essentially what I did is I put in all my lab reports, kind of gave it all the basics about, I was very clear. I don't want a diet plan to lose 10 pounds. I want you to teach me how to build the habits, routines, and behaviors to eat better,
Mhm.
right? And to learn how to do that over time. So put in a long prompt here, put in all of my vitals, put in all my base numbers, all of that. So it has like a lot of context about me.
Mhm.
And then, here's an example of what happens. So let's see. Sorry, I'm just going. Yeah. So I just take a photo of my plate, right? Here's what's on my plate. Give it a little context. Here's my lunch, and it'll just calculate the macros for me, right? And
Yeah.
then it'll give me some advice on, what's going well, what needs to be buffered a little bit, and kind of do that meal by meal. And at the end of the day, it tells me like traffic light signals, what am I doing well, where can I improve, and just doing this meal over meal, day over day, like the results were quite transformative. And then, I took my lab tests again, my numbers greatly improved.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
great. Thank you. Okay.
All right. Other questions? Hanan?
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, first, thank you so much for sharing. And I can relate to what you said because I did the same thing when my mom got ill. And I'm actually right now in Morocco, and the medical reports were all in French, advanced medical French. So ChatGPT was very helpful as far as translating that into basic wording so I can understand really what's going on. And it helped me calm down, just like you said, how to organize the files, what kind of questions to ask the doctors. It was great. My question to you, if possible, to elaborate on that later. We keep hearing how sometimes though AI cannot be as reliable. There are a lot of mistakes, or it can be misleading, and that kind of scares me sometimes when it's a very important question I'm asking. And if you can just guide us a little bit on how to balance between relying on it, but at the same time be cautious enough to not just follow it blindly, or just at least improve the prompts, or how can we avoid being, in a situation where it's inaccurate information, or just at least not fearing
Yeah.
constantly that it might be wrong information. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
So Hanan, thanks for asking that question. Like I go deep into all of this in the slides here. So I'll answer your questions in a minute in context. But essentially, what we're going to cover here is where AI will fit into your day-to-day life and work, what you can trust, and where you have to verify more, and how to get repeatable value, right? So it's not just a kind of curiosity thing that you turn to once in a while, but how do you like actually embed this into your ways of working? So everything that I'm going to talk about today can be done with one of the mainstream tools. Each of these is generally about $20 a month. We're not going to talk about any six-figure investments or big enterprise scale transformation. Like we're not going to talk about any of that today. We're going to talk about what can you do with ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude or Copilot. And one of the questions I get asked the most is, where do I start? There's so many different tools. Actually, there's 50,000 different AI apps on the market right now. So it's totally crazy and overwhelming because we're in a world where like the AI is building the AI, right? And so what I always say is pick, you can pick any one of these and go. Pick whichever one is closest into your world. If you ask me, I would say I recommend ChatGPT because it's the best kind of all-rounder. It's the best bang for your buck for $20 a month. You can create images, you can write code, you can analyze data, you can make decisions, you can write content, all of it. Each one of these is great. They're all fairly neck and neck at this point. A lot of it is personal preference, and a lot of it is like what system are you already tied to, right? So Gemini is great if you live in the Google world. It was kind of the front runner over November, December. Now it's Claude. Will likely be ChatGPT in another week or so. So that's just kind of how this goes on a week, on a month by month basis. Claude is fantastic. It's particularly good if you do a lot of writing or coding related work. That's what this LLM is kind of well known for. And then Copilot is really if you live in the Microsoft world. I will say ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude are kind of tier one, and then Copilot is tier two. It does run on GPT models, on OpenAI's models, but the feature set is ever so slightly different. These are all kind of natively built for the AI era, as this is more kind of adapting to Microsoft's environment. And yeah, I would say if you're wondering where to start, just pick any one of these, whichever one feels closest in, and go. And the most important thing is pony up the $20, pay for the paid plan. The free plan just doesn't give you enough runtime. They're going to be running ads on the free plans shortly, which means, your data and privacy has, there's much less data privacy security that you have control over. Whereas on the paid plans, it's as safe as using, Google Drive or Copilot, Google Drive or SharePoint or any cloud-based software today. So there's a big difference between the free plans and the paid plans. And most people kind of use the free plans, they get frustrated and they give up. If you take away nothing else from today, just pony up $20, put a reminder on your calendar to cancel it. You'll probably never cancel it because you'll get so much value. So, to understand kind of what's going on in this moment, it's helpful to stop and kind of zoom out. And we'll take a look at how work has evolved over the last 200 years, right? So the good news is this is not our first rodeo. We've been through multiple waves of transformation based on big changes in technology, right? So the first one was the Industrial Revolution. This was all about the arrival of the assembly line and manufacturing and all of those things, right? The next revolution was the digital revolution. This came about with computers, software, mobile, social, cloud. And the unit of work here was around data. And now we're in the AI era, and we're kind of moving from this world of computers to this world of intelligence, right? And the unit of work here is cognition or thinking. And I'm going to go unpack each of these in a second here. Christine, I'll come back to you in a second. I'm just going to finish this. So the Industrial Revolution, this was really a democratization of muscle, right? Of power. Work that could be done by 100 horses was now 100 horsepower motor. Energy, which was the energy was the main unit of work. And this kind of unfolded over a long period of time. So the change was fairly linear. As we got into the digital era, this was really the arrival of software and code and computers that could process vast amounts of information really, really quickly. And what the internet did is it democratized knowledge that sat inside of people's heads or books in libraries, kind of got indexed on the internet. We could search it with Google, and it democratized knowledge. And the change that we saw was exponential, right? And then now we're in the AI era. And what's really different and interesting about the AI era is that the unit of work is really reasoning, right? And what that means is that it's democratizing expertise. And this is something that is a really transformative idea to wrap your head around. And for many of us, initially it feels kind of scary because we've all built our careers on, going to school and getting degrees and working up the ladder. But when you think about what I mean by access to expertise is that we all now in our pockets have access to PhD level smarts, right? So I can get my contracts looked at by, the equivalent of a junior lawyer, something I just would never have the money to pay for, as in, as a solopreneur. I can ask, I can, build my own nutritionist and learn how to eat better without having to spend thousands of dollars to get that expertise. So that's what I mean by the democratization of expertise. And really, the hardest part here is to figure out what is the right question to ask and what are the right problems that are worth solving, right? And the higher the quality of your question and the better the framing of your problem, the better an answer you get from the AI, right? So I'll pause here. I'll take a couple of questions and then we'll move on. Christine, you had a question.
Hi, Danush, and thank you. My question goes back a couple of slides when you had the different platforms that were listed. And I'm just wondering, um, uh, are there certain things that different platforms are better at or that we should be looking at depending on what it is or the information that we're trying to kind of get to?
Yeah, that's a great question, Christine. So I would say you want to figure out what is your daily driver, right? Like your assistant on most things. And for that, any one of these three are best. So ChatGPT is really good. It's really conversational. The downside here is that it's quite sycophantic. So it really tries to please you and it doesn't push back against you enough. Claude kind of pushes back against you a little bit more. Claude is a little bit better for writing. If you're doing a lot of like writing related tasks, content creation, things of that nature, Claude is probably a little bit better there. People that do that sort of work like it more. And Gemini is great for anything that is like if you're searching for a lot of information on the internet, like this is built by Google. And so, it's got all of Google's strengths baked into it. It's all, Gemini is also in all of Gmail, Google Drive, and can kind of talk across things. So that's the big benefit there. Um, what I like about ChatGPT is it's the most versatile. Like you can use connectors and I connect it to my Google Drive, my email, my calendar, and it can search through all of that, right? So again, it's really preferential. And then I would say the other one that I haven't put on this slide is Perplexity. Perplexity is great for if you do a lot of research, if you're searching for a lot of information on the internet, if you're doing a lot of like research-based work, Perplexity is a fantastic one. But I would say that's probably a secondary one. Any one of these will kind of get you to 80% of what you need to do. Um, and then, you kind of fill the other 20% with more specialized things. So I built a lot of slides as part of my job. So I use Gamma, which is just great for building slides. Steph?
Hi, yeah, thank you for this. So I haven't really touched any kind of AI ChatGPT thing. I've been very resistant. And one of the things I've always been concerned about, especially, I mean, I see how it could be really helpful almost as like a personal assistant situation, right? Keeping organized. I work with a lot of data, right? In Temple, so overall Microsoft, right? Like we have Copilot. Where's my concern when I'm using, proprietary data that belongs to Temple and putting it into kind of open AI situations to get things like where's my risk and what can I and can I do not do? That's like one of my biggest fears.
Yeah, great question. So firstly, you want to follow Temple's policies, right? You want to first look at like what are the guidelines and policies, and if there aren't, then you kind of have to go to your manager and open that conversation. Be like, what can and cannot, what can I put in and what can I not put in, right? If you're on the free plan, that's much riskier because that information goes into training data. Okay. If you're on a paid plan, you can just opt to not put that into training data, and then that information is just held in your account. And it's pretty safe. It has the same security protocols as any other cloud-based software. It's SOC 2 Type 2 compliance. So there's a big difference between the paid plan and the free plan. When you're on the free plan, I'm sorry, when you're on the paid plan, you can go down here, you can go to settings, data controls, and there's this, it says improve the model for everyone. You want to make sure this is turned off. And as long as this is turned off, you're all good. The information is not leaking into training data. It's just being held in your account. And it's pretty safe. Did that answer your question, Steph? Okay. All right, so moving on, let's talk about why AI feels so different. Um, so the previous era, the digital era of software was all deterministic. And what that means is it was built for a single purpose. It was built on a predefined set of rules. Everything was kind of very logically based. And it was designed to produce one specific outcome very reliably, very accurately, but very narrow. So think of like a calculator or Excel. If you put 2 + 2, you'd always get 4. Like you'd never question the accuracy or the dependability of that. That's how that era of software was built. Sorry, AI is quite different, right? And the way in which these models are built is they're probabilistic, which means that it's not based on a logical construct. It is based on an organic construct. So think of it as almost like the way the leaders of these labs talk about it is like they're almost grown like organisms, right? And it's like they're slowly releasing the control as the AI matures. So, so this isn't so much like the way software in the previous era was built. This is a general purpose technology, which means, let's say, Salesforce was deterministic. It was built to look at your customer data and answer questions, right? And give you insight into their behaviors. But it couldn't write you a proposal. Whereas ChatGPT can do it all, right? It can analyze your customer data, it can give you insight into what's going on, it can use that insight to write a proposal, and that proposal can land with much greater impact because it's been able to do all of that, right? And that's the big difference here. However, it comes with some trade-offs because over here, it's the probabilistic aspect of AI means it's guessing. And I'm going to explain this in a second. So it's not always accurate, right? And sometimes and that's what's called a hallucination. And the reason it hallucinates is sometimes user error. It's us not kind of putting in enough context, structuring a prompt in a thoughtful way, not selecting the right model. Like all of those things can lead to hallucinations that are controllable by us. And then there's a randomness that comes with how these models work that will never go away. It's part of how this technology is built. That has been kind of getting less and less over time, right? But it's still there. And at this point, I would say probably about, less than 20% of the time the model hallucinates. So that's not nothing. 20% is enough to be concerned, but the 80% of the time, it's really freaking good, right? And so as long as we learn how to identify and control the 20%, it's super valuable 80% of the time, right? So the way you want to think about it is like you're working with a really smart intern, right? And even a really smart intern that might have come from MIT that's working for you is still going to make errors. They're still not going to contextually understand everything, right? And so that's the kind of way to think about this. So if I say burgers plus fries, what's the next most likely thing in this sequence? Like who can answer this? All right, let's open it up. Come on.
Something to drink?
Something to drink. Okay, somebody said Happy Belly. Great.
Coke.
Let's keep going. Sorry, did someone
Me.
say
Burgers. Yeah. Burgers, fries, and a Coke.
Coke, right? So yeah, most of us would say Coke, soda, something like that, because we've seen that pattern a million times. And that's kind of how AI works. It's been trained on most available human knowledge. And based on what it's seen in its training data and how you frame the question, it's going to guess the most likely word in this sequence, right? And that's the probabilistic aspect of it. So, it could guess Coke, it could guess milkshake, it could guess nap. None of these are objectively wrong answers. It depends on the context in which this conversation came up, right? And that's the important thing to understand about AI. That's how this stuff works. It's guessing based on the conversation before, the information it's seen, and what you're asking of it, right? So the better you frame a question, the better you get an answer. The more context you give it, the less it's making up stuff, right? Otherwise, to answer this is just, it's making up stuff if you don't give it enough information. If you don't tell it the scene, the setting, the scenario, whether this is in a fast food restaurant, whether it's in a fancy restaurant, whether you're on a date, whether you're grabbing a quick bite, like that's all context, right? And without that context, it's just randomly guessing. So that's how you control the hallucinations. So meet your new intern. Let's actually get in here and say a quick hello. If you've never experienced this, I highly recommend it. Hi, chat. How you doing this morning? I'm teaching a workshop to alumni of Temple University. Can you say a quick hello and introduce yourself?
Hey folks, great to be here. I'm ChatGPT, your friendly AI assistant. I help people think more creatively, solve problems, and have fun conversations. I'm here to support Danush, who's guiding you today, and hopefully give you a fresh perspective. Let's make it a great session.
Thanks, chat. It's really just that easy. That's how you get started. I highly recommend just going straight to the voice mode. Everything moves much faster, much easier. And your adoption is going to be much more seamless, right? And the voice mode works incredibly well these days.
Danush,
So,
well, over here on ChatGPT, there was a question in the chat about could you describe the function and practice of training data? You notice where you could change that on or off in the setting, but someone had asked if you could describe what is the function and practice of training data.
So training data is essentially the knowledge base on which the AI is trained. So there's a cutoff date, which means up until that cutoff date, it's been trained on most publicly available human knowledge. Pretty much it's read most of the books that are out there, most of the internet that doesn't have a paywall or some sort of blocker, most of social media, all of Reddit, all of that. So most available human knowledge is what it's been trained on. So training data is the data that goes into the AI's giant brain.
Thanks.
All right. So again, your new intern, fantastic, PhD at MIT level smarts, really great at thinking through complex problems, really great at having a ton of knowledge and information, amazing at pattern recognition. Anything that involves pattern recognition, like this thing is solidly, reliably good at, better than we are. But where it struggles is it's not always factually accurate, right? It's guessing stuff. It knows everything about all human knowledge, but it knows nothing about Danush, who Danush hangs out with, what he cares about, what his priorities are, what he's working on today, what his goals are for this week, what his business goals are for the year. So if I don't tell it all that, it's just guessing to fill the gap. And that's where all the trouble happens, right? So you can use AI as an assistant or as an advisor, right? So it's helpful to kind of have this mental model when you first start working with AI. We teach this in our long form course. It's one of the core kind of frameworks. So when you're using it as an assistant, you're offloading your low level task level work. And this is really an efficiency play. You're trying to buy hours back, right? And you're having it like write first drafts of your email, prep for meetings, write follow-ups, all of that sort of stuff. But then you also want to be using it as an advisor. You want to be using all this massive intellectual horsepower that you have to actually help you solve problems. So here you're having it help you sharpen your thinking. You're bringing in expertise. Like let's say you're working on a pricing strategy, you can have it act like a behavioral economist and help you kind of set up your pricing strategy, research it, benchmark it against others in the industry. And all of this can be done at rapid speed, right? And then it's also great at helping you communicate, taking like complex things and helping you translate that into language that other people can understand, so it lands and your ideas move forward faster. So this is a helpful mental model to think about the advisor, the assistant, which capability are you kind of bringing in? And then what you can trust quickly versus what you always have to verify, right? So you can usually trust summaries of your own content. If you're asking it to search through your Google Drive and summarize something, or you give it a transcript and you ask it to summarize something, it's going to do a pretty reliable job of that. If you give it messy inputs, like you do a brain dump and ask it to structure it into a brief, it's going to do a great job of that. First drafts of emails, things of that nature, it's going to do a great job of. But where you always have to verify is like if you have specifications, if you're bidding an RFP and there's like a whole bunch of like very specific things in there, those are things that you want to verify. Numbers and pricing. Again, not like it's fantastic at math, it's fantastic at calculations, but where it trips up is counting. And this is crazy. This is like an anomaly of the system that no one can quite understand. But if like there was this thing a couple of months ago where you could ask any model, any of these brilliant models, how many R's are in the word strawberry, and each model would give you a different answer, but none of them would say 3, right? And so when you're asking it to count the number of times R appeared in strawberry, they would all hallucinate. So remember, anything that involves counting, word counts, page numbers, like it's going to struggle. And don't expect a correct answer there. That's a known kind of use case where it hallucinates. Compliance statements, anything that involves trust, privacy, your reputation, you always want to double check, verify, go back to the source information and just spot check, right? So the key skills to working with AI well and getting really good outputs. Skill 1 is learn how to communicate and collaborate with it. The holy trinity here is model selection. You have to select the right model for the right job. You can use the auto select, but when you're doing consequential work, I would highly recommend kind of picking the right model for the job. So you can pick models here. Most of the time, the default is auto. So it's like, driving in auto versus driving stick shift. Instant is where you're working in fast iterative loops. So this is typically the more creative kind of work. Think brainstorming, think coming up with ideas, writing first drafts. Anything that is like more creative, you work in shorter, faster loops. That's the instant model. And then the thinking model is really where you kind of frame up a problem, give it what the problem is, what the constraints are, what the trade-offs are, and then let it work for a few minutes. So the trade-off here is the thinking models take much longer. So it'll think for 2, 3, 5, 10 minutes, depending on the complexity of the problem. But then it'll come back to you with a much deeper answer. It's really well thought out. It's really well reasoned. It's using all its intellectual horsepower and applying all that expertise to the problem. But that requires you setting a really good frame up front, right? So you want to understand the difference between these two capabilities, because if you use a thinking model for a writing task, it's going to sound cold, it's going to sound impersonal, but it's going to be very deep thought, right? If you use the instant model for brainstorming, it's just going to take too long. It's going to take like 3 minutes for it to think through this problem, and you need it to work in faster, shorter loops. So it's really important to understand the kind of gears that you're kind of upshifting and downshifting here. The pro model is where you can just assign it work. It's like you give it a brief, like you're handing it off to a junior colleague, and it will just go work on it for 30 minutes and come back with like 3 days of work done. So the pro model, that one you have to kind of bump up to the business plan or the kind of higher tier plans. I don't think it's part of the $20 a month plan, but don't worry about it. Like you get plenty here. Once you kind of learn how to use these well, then you can consider moving up to pro. Context, super important. I covered this in the context of the burger and fries example, but if you give AI, if you use it like Google, which most people do when you first start using AI, you're going to get horrible answers. You're going to get answers that look polished, but are like empty, and they just feel like they're not very useful. So don't give it like a 2-sentence prompt with a bunch of keywords. That's where you go wrong, right? Give it like a half page or a page worth of context, and then see you'll get brilliant answers. Now, sitting and typing a half page prompt or a page long prompt, very few of us have the patience to do. That's why you go voice mode, right? And you can talk out a page in like 30 seconds. But to type that would take you, a few minutes, several minutes. So that's why the voice mode is really important there. And then finally, prompts. Prompts used to be a lot more important, 6 to 12 months ago, but now the models are so smart that they can infer a lot of meaning. They're important, but in the chain, their kind of model selection is the most important, followed by context, followed by prompts. And to write a good prompt, just think of it like you're delegating work to someone, right? So you want to be very clear about what is the goal of this collaboration. What does good look like when the work comes back to you? What does good look like? Define that. Define what form factor you want it in. Do you want a report? Do you want bullets? Do you want explanatory paragraphs? Do you want a Q&A format? Do you want analysis? Like, what do you want back, right? And then call in the right expertise. So you want to start with the role, which is calling in the right expertise, give it the goal, fill the middle with as much context as you can, break it down into, sequence the context, and not just dumping 10 documents in, but you're actually saying like, hey, look at this, then look at this, then look at this, then look at this. And then finally put some guardrails. Like, what do you not want it to do, right? And if you do those things, you'll get brilliant outputs from your AI. And the error rates will be relatively low. You still have to fact check. You still have to go back to source material, and anything that leaves your desk is your work, right? You can't say the AI made a mistake. Like, it's your work. You're the one that's responsible. You're the one that's getting paid. Skill number 2 is the trust ladder. So when you're working with AI, trust is not just a feeling. You have to like operationalize it. You have to turn it into a process, right? So the AI is great at doing the first draft. You verify, and only then do you ship, right? Because at the end of the day, when it leaves your desk, the outcome of that work is yours. Skill 3, these are the human skills that matter, right? The skills like judgment, taste, empathy, morality, like all of these things are more important than they've ever been, right? So in a world where the AI can do a lot of the execution of the work, these human skills become more and more valuable. So let's talk about how this works in context. So when you frame up the work, this is super important, right? Your expertise, your field knowledge, your being in 1,000 rooms really matters here, because you know how to frame the problem, how to tell it what matters, what doesn't matter, what the trade-offs are, what the consequences are, and kind of give it the right amount of context, right? So that's really where kind of all of your years of experience come into play. And then the AI is great at like doing that work, but when it comes out, you still have to spend time verifying the outputs. And depending on how good of a job you do on the front end, you spend less time on the back end. Otherwise, you end up spending way too much time trying to like solve or verify the last 10% of the things before shipping it off, right? So if you want to spend less time here, spend more time here. And finally, like when you start using AI, like this is kind of what it looks like in practice. So, once you get the trio right of model, context, prompt, your task level work starts to reduce. You get 6 to 8 hours back routinely coming out of our AI prompting course. That's what students get, is they get 6 to 8 hours a week back. That's almost a day's worth of work that you get back, right? Not only that, but the quality of your thinking, the quality of your work, the quality of your outputs gets significantly better, right? Which obviously has many follow-on consequences. More deals go through, more ideas get acted upon, more things get greenlit, more budget get approved. And then the next level after that is where you really get into like workflows, automation, agents. I would say don't even get into this stuff until you kind of get through levels 1 and 2. But we also have a workflows course, and that's really where you kind of set up an assembly line of work and you delegate the work to the AI, right? So you just completely take it off your plate. So things to wrap your head around in this vein of things is, imagine you're a marketing team. Every week you have a meeting, 6 people come together. Each person spends an hour prepping for the meeting. Each person spends an hour afterwards trying to figure out what to do with the stuff that came out of that meeting. All of that can be automated. That meeting prep can be automated, and that follow-up can be automated. And that, each person on that team gets 2 hours back, right? That's the kind of efficiency that the workflows and automations kind of brings in. And with that, just know that this is a real roller coaster. When you first start using AI, nobody talks about the emotional side of this, but if you're working with really, really smart technology And initially it's fascinating. Then you kind of get into the prompts and the context and it doesn't quite work. And you kind of get frustrated and you're like, this thing is pretty weird. The technology is not quite there. The technology is there. You got to adopt it, right? Like that's where the challenge is. Then at 2 a.m., you go down a rabbit hole and it comes up with something brilliant. You're like, oh my God, I'm done. Like this thing is smarter than me. I have no value in the world. I'm going to lose my job. I'm going to lose my profession. None of that happens. That's not going to happen. But you will feel that at some point. That's when you kind of hit rock bottom and know that you're going to come out of that. And then you get to, oh, this is pretty amazing. And then finally you find the happy collaboration between you and the AI, where you do the things you do best, the AI does what it does best. You kind of figure out that happy balance and you get great outputs, great outcomes, and things improve in your life. Finally, I'll just show, sorry, I know I'm a little behind time here, Clayton, but I'll be quick here. So quick demo here, just for you to get a sense of like what's possible. I'm imagining most of you have been in a situation like this. There's a 50 email chain, there's 12 different parties, no clear owner. It's just escalating and escalating, email over email. People are getting more tense, more frustrated, more angry. And then you get called in, you have to like quickly orient yourself around what's going on here and how do you get it back on track. So here the issue was a service issue. It was equipment that was being installed in in a commercial kitchen. The salesperson was the one that kind of was at the center of this. There was 5 people on the dealer side, so the equipment dealer side, 3 people from the general contractor side, 1 service provider, 4 people from the equipment manufacturer side, the rep, and the end customer, right? So this is like that many people on this one thread. I'm going to show you what happened here. So when we go in here, literally, this is a real life scenario. This is from one of my clients. You can see here, this is a 29 pages of emails, 50 different emails. Everyone's getting more and more mad as each thing goes on. So I put this into chat and say, I want you to act like a rep war room, manufacturer's rep war room. Here's what the situation is, kind of give it some context and give it some context. And then tell it I want I basically want you to give me a sense of what's going on, what is the current status here, what are the blockers, what decisions need to be made, who do I need to communicate with, what do I need to say to each of them to get this thing unstuck, right? And in like 90 seconds you get to clarity, right? And you get a sense of like exactly what's going on here and what you need to do, orient yourself quickly. Then I can go on here and say, okay, I want you to do a root cause analysis. I wanted you to do it 2 versions, one external facing, which is diplomatic, and the second one is internal facing, where I really need to understand what's going on here. Like I take off the gloves and just give it to me straight. So it does it both ways, right? What's confirmed, what's being verified, what the resolution is, what the next step needs to be. And then it does here's really what went wrong, where the handoffs failed, points of emotion, escalation triggers, and what you can do to prevent this from happening next time, right? And then it takes it all the way to a whiteboard sketch where I can now like have a conversational tool to go around and have a conversation with each of these parties, explain what went wrong, where their place is in the process, and how to fix it, right? And not only that, but it drafts the entire email to the chain to kick off this process and then kind of go one by one and resolve this. So that's the kind of clarity that something like this can help you get to very, very quickly, right? You have this messy situation, you get thrown into it in the nth moment, and you have to dive in and figure it out. Another scenario for those of you that are job searching, this is another quick demo here where I'm not asking chat to rewrite this person's resume. I'm asking it to act like the hiring manager for the role and then tell me where is the resume kind of not quite landing, interview me, help me understand how I can translate all of the great experience that I have into a way that will land with this, with this hiring manager, with this role. So I say you're a senior hiring manager with deep experience evaluating candidates for project manager roles. So basically, the applicant is somebody who had retail experience retail operations experience and wants to apply for a project manager role at Comcast. So I'm clear here. Don't invent new skills. Don't inflate the scope. Treat this as a translation and critique task, right? I'm not asking you to embellish my experience to meet the needs of the job. So it kind of summarizes what it's going to do for me. If there was any errors here, I would correct it. And then I give it this job description, I would give it this resume, which looks really polished, but is missing some key things. I give it the job description. I say, act like a skeptical hiring manager for this project manager role. And without rewriting anything, tell me what the candidate does well, where their experience is strong but invisible, and where the language is misaligned, right? And very quickly, it tells me this is what the candidate does well. This is where they're strong but invisible, right? And what needs to be translated. And then where the language is misaligned. So it says focus on operations rather than projects. For a project manager role, you need to have a start and end date to a project. And you need to be able to show that you can translate this operational experience into a project experience, right? PMs think in temporary scope work, not just recurring operational tasks. So this is giving you insight. It's opening up your blind spots. It's helping you understand what's missing and how you can translate that. And this is how, we're using the expertise of a hiring manager to help us gain insight on the things that we're missing and why we don't get called back when we apply for jobs, right? Lauren.
Hi, Anush. It's Laureen. Thank you for presenting this today. I had a quick question regarding the topic that you just spoke to. When you're thinking about a prompt, is it important to include the nuance of the metro region that you're speaking to, or like you're looking for a job potentially, or the name of an employer in addition to the role, right? So
oh, absolutely.
is that the more is it more nuanced, the better the outcome in that situation?
Yeah. Always.
Okay. And my second part of the question is this is more pertaining to like maybe what you do or what maybe you teach users to do. Do you keep a sheet on your computer, like a rolling sheet of like all these prompts that you use all the time?
Yeah.
Or are you are you doing what I've heard before, whereby people are putting like certain parameters into their profile, like no double dashes, always speaking this type of voice, just certain things or indicators or parameters? Just want you to speak to that if you could. Thank you.
Yeah, so we teach all of that in great depth in the long form course. We teach you how to, personalize and set up your ChatGPT the right way so you get curated answers, not generic answers. We teach you all the efficiency plays for setting up prompt libraries, custom GPTs, when to use a project versus when to use a GPT, all of those sorts of nuances. And there's a million hidden features within ChatGPT, and we kind of explore all of it. We explore what ChatGPT agent does versus deep research, how's each one different versus, use cases for when to use which one. And then you're doing it in community, right? And that's the best part, is you're not just learning this stuff in a vacuum. You're learning it in context with other people. Other people are talking about how they're using it in their work. And that's probably as important as the content, is just how other people are applying the concepts. It's really hard to learn how to use AI in a vacuum, because it's a whole new way of thinking and working, right? It's not just that you're learning a new technology. Prompting is it's not about syntax. It's not like code. It is a communication skill.
Understood. Thank you.
Yep. Clayton, sorry, I know I didn't leave you too much time here, but.
No, that's really great stuff, Danush. Really appreciate the time and all the questions and interaction. I think one thing to note about the programs, there's a lot of learner support that we provide and wraparound support. So a lot of the questions, you not only have someone like Danush who's helping within the program, but we also have our learner success advocates as well, who make sure you get a lot of these questions answered and guide you through a lot of the uncertainty, especially around AI. So a wealth of resources to make sure you're successful. We also offer 365 days access to the content, as well as our career hub, to help you translate like a lot of what we talked about today and a lot of what Danush is teaching you. How do you translate that to a job opportunity, an interview, a resume, and what skills can you bring to an organization. So we provide a lot of that support to help you with translating that and creating new opportunities for you if you are in the search for a new job, et cetera. So just wanted to note that. Danush, any parting notes or anything? Thanks for the time. This was awesome.
Yeah, I would say, we see some incredible stories come out of our courses. Our AI courses are 5 weeks long, and people go through a real transformation during those 5 weeks. People come in, they meet other people, start side hustles, start businesses, get promoted, find jobs. Like there's all sorts of great outcomes that come out of it. And it's because you're not just learning the mechanics of a new technology, but you're learning new ways of thinking and working and collaborating in this new era.
Yep. That's great. Pat and team, any final notes on your side before we wrap?
Yes, I'm just going to wrap up here. Thank you so much, Danush, and especially for bringing it to our Temple alumni community. This was so important. And I think we can all agree that today's presentation really highlighted how quickly AI is reshaping the way we work, the way we learn. And if you are interested in taking that next step, building these practical skills, AI courses that we've talked about today are designed to help you do exactly that. I am Katie Fagan. I am with the non-credit and continuing education program. And many of you may not realize that the non-credit offerings that we do have at Temple, but we do, such as these two programs we're promoting today, the AI prompting and the AI automation. You as alumni have the opportunity to have a discount on these programs. So that is a perk for you. It's very easy. It's on the registration page. It's literally just checking off the box that says alumni. And to ensure that you have the information you need, Pat from the Alumni Network is going to be providing you with an email with all the resources that you need to stay connected while exploring these opportunities. And my contact information that's not only at the bottom of this slide will also be in that email. So thank you so much. And it's been really helpful. And we appreciate you spending the time with us today.
Yeah, thanks so much, everyone. I just want to echo those words, and thank you, Danush, for sharing all of your expertise with everyone today. I hope we all walk away feeling a little more confident and clear on how to use these resources. But that concludes today's program. We'll send out that post-event email with some of these links and information. Thank you all for joining us, and stay warm. Hope to see you all soon.